Hey everybody, it's a pretty nice night out here, and I've got a whole pile of the new tweaks I've done to the MD-8. So here's the original. But what I've done, if you watched my previous live stream, is I've gone through and I've tweaked the top plate. So you can see here, if I bring it in close, I have some that are 2 millimeters, some that are 2.2. The original MD-8 is 2.4. And this one is 1.8, so we're getting down to really thin top plate. As far as feel goes, the 1.8 is pretty nice and malleable. The original 2.4 isn't actually that bad, but what you really get out of it is you get that push of the material to the edge. So you get that moment of inertia that gets pushed out to the edge. So there's extra weight on the rim, less on the top plate, which means we should get a little bit further distance out of it. So what I'm going to do, now that I squished it with my knee, is I have a little testing sheet here. I'm going to go through each of these discs. You can see here, I'm going to throw them 10 times each. I'm going to do a forehand or backhand, and then I'm going to do a distance check with, I have a rangefinder, but I also will be using my phone using U-Disc, and I'm going to determine the different distances that they get. And once I've got it all recorded, I'll be able to see how different each of these are going to perform. So one thing to note before I get started here, so I have a regular MD-8 with 172 grams and a slightly thinner top plate one with 172, so they're apples to apples. And then I have lighter weight versions of the thinner plate ones, so we'll see how they do. It is getting a little bit dark out here, so I'm gonna throw, I think, the first throw on camera, and I'll try to capture a couple extras, but if it gets too dark, I'll just show the results at the end and we can take a look at that together. And last thing I'll mention before I get started, I'm gonna go from the thicker to thinnest, so heaviest to lightest. And if you look at those trees in the background, the big pine trees that I like to throw at, those ones are about 230 feet. Those trees on the left are about 240 to 250. So you can see, I can point right here, these green ones in the background, they're 240 to 250. So as it usually goes, the first one seems to be going the farthest, which is kind of the original design. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to start mixing up the order. So we'll start to see if something else throws a little bit further. As far as feel goes, you kind of feel the same. It's not until you kind of watch the glide, if you get a really good throw and you get lots of spin and snap, the glide seems to kick in and you seem to get a couple extra air bounces out of the newer ones. I am throwing them a little bit lower than I want to after the first one, so hopefully this is going to kind of even out here. I think this is actually a good shot to showcase this disc. So we got way off in the distance, I have my box that I'm using to store all my gear, and Probably should have brought my disc golf bag. I got a box. But we got all these tree limbs in the way, so what I need to do is throw and try to get it to bend around. And what I'm going to do is do a forehand. I don't want it to be a bomb or a spike. I kind of want it to glide for a bit and then fade out. So I'm going to try to do a couple of those forehand shots here. Start with a lighter weight. I didn't get away in the way of the camera there, but I smoked that one. Getting pretty dark out, but getting a couple chucks in. I think that was my fourth now for all the discs. All in all, they're feeling pretty good. I think the weight change is just enough to, every time I'm throwing it a little bit different. And so sometimes I'm feeling like I have to throw it harder, or feel like I have to throw it with more technique. And so between all of them, I'm starting to get like different throws between each circuit. So just keep watching the numbers, see how they turn out. Money. Oh, it felt pretty good. So for this throw so far, we're halfway through, is the 2.2. So based upon what I'm seeing, having that extra mass in the rim is helping so far. Furthest throw was the 2.2, and we've got it about 10 feet further than the MD-8 so far. What's kind of crazy is that we have the lighter weight discs, which of course I haven't designed it exactly for the lighter weight quite yet, but the lighter weight discs aren't going as far. So that's something that I think we're gonna have to figure out. So I might have to do the rest of them in the dark. It's the fun thing about being a dad, is that when you start to have some time to go out and actually throw discs, it's usually past 8 o'clock or 8:30, and here in Saskatchewan it gets pretty dark pretty early around that time, so I'm kind of used to it. Oh, it's real dark now, but threw backhand with a 2.2, 240 feet, and I believe that's the furthest I've ever thrown this disc so far, so pretty happy with that result. It's dark enough I just saw my first bat fly over my head, so I'm gonna keep on going. Alright, so we are back in the shop. I think this is pretty fun. I ended up getting 7 throws out there, not quite the 10 before it got so dark that I was pretty confident I was going to lose a disc. Got a pretty good spread, and I'll show the results on the screen now. I think all in all, I got the results that I was hoping for. But I just want to talk about the results a bit because I think they're pretty interesting. So just first off, like this is 7 throws. It's not like a huge sample size. What I was hoping to do is just kind of show that the science or the calcs say that making these changes will have an impact, a positive impact on the distance. But there's a whole bunch of variations there with like how you're throwing and how you're feeling with each throw. I mixed up the discs constantly because I felt like my first throw was different than my last throw in the set of 5. So I kept throwing different orders and different types of throws. And so yeah, I guess results here. MD-8 almost consistently was less than the 2.2 millimeter thick top plate or flight plate. So pretty good evidence that the change was positive. I have gone through and done my calcs, and I believe that with the mass that's being pushed to the rim, we should be getting somewhere around 4 to 5% more flight out of it. And that doesn't sound like much, but when you're throwing a disc, that can be that extra like 5 to 10 feet that you might get out of a throw. So when I was throwing each disc back to back, a lot of times I was throwing MD-8 and then this disc, or splitting it up, and sometimes the discs were landing that far apart. They would end up being like 20 feet apart or 10 feet apart. So this spread doesn't really capture that well. It kind of captures the overall. So it's as scientific as you can get with a sample size of 7. The other thing I was going to talk about, so the interesting thing about the lower, I guess, weight and the lower thickness flight plate discs was that you'd almost think that a lighter disc is going to fly farther. And in the case of this one, it still flew well, and in some cases I had some really long throws with it. In fact, my longest throw in the end was a 243 foot throw, which was the 2 millimeter thick 163 gram disc. But I wasn't consistently getting that result. I was getting more consistently lower numbers. So that meant that when I was throwing it, I think I'm used to throwing heavier discs. So when I was throwing it, I would throw it probably incorrectly to get it to fly that distance. So maybe one of those one of those sets that I did, I felt like I was throwing it with the other ones and it felt a little bit smoother. I think I remember when I threw it, I felt like I just like nailed the throw. You know, when you get that feeling when you throw it and you're like, wow, I got on that one, or I got under it really well. It flies and it kind of lands a little bit further than you would expect your normal throw to go. It was one of those, so it kind of felt like it was just kind of hitting the sweet spot. That said, consistently, if I look at the results here, I've got them written down. Everything for the MD-8 2.2 millimeter, the one that I'm thinking is kind of the sweet spot right now, seems to indicate that it was consistently doing better. So I think that's going to give us the results that we're looking for. Just looking at my page right now, I have one that was 9 feet longer than the MD-8, one that was 6 feet longer, one that was 6 feet longer, one that was 11 feet longer, one that was the same, one that was 9 feet longer, and one that was 5 feet longer. So we are getting that extra little kick out of it. So the last thing I'm going to do here, and I'm not going to do as thorough of a video or review on it, is I'm going to go and I'm going to take the 2.0 millimeter disc and make that one as a final tester. Because that one had the longest distance, but it wasn't as consistent, I want to try it as the heavier disc to see if it works. The 1.8, although it felt nice, felt like it was starting to lose a bit of that comfort that I was liking, so I didn't feel like it was as nice. But I was playing with it outside and just kind of throwing it almost like a catch disc, and it was almost starting to feel like it would be a really good like putter or like a play with your friends type disc. So I'm kind of, I think there's something there. There still might be something that I play around with in the future. But yeah, let me know if you like this content. This is kind of the last step before we go and get this disc completed for our final PDGA approval. I'm not going to show all the goods before we release the disc. There is a couple more tweaks that I want to make to get it completely refined. I still have to go through the PDGA approval process, which I have to go through and check everything and make sure everything's been designed and engineered correctly. So I think in the future we will show some of that content, but for this time, because we want to just get this disc out to people and we want to start growing our like products that we deliver, we're going to get this one out, and then we're going to start working on another disc pretty quick after that. So stay tuned, and we need a good slogan. Chickadee dee 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 dee. Anyways, ciao.